Now that the POJO as well as the DAO are ready, let's try to apply this what we have written into our activity. Since I cannot retrieve, update or delete without the insert part working properly, first we will do the insert activity, and in the next video I'll do the main activity in which I'll be retrieving. So let's add a new activity for inserting purposes. Let's right click on the app and create a new activity, empty activity, and let me name it as insert activity. And once the Gradle sync is completed, let's go to the design. And in the design, it's normally recommended that if you have more than 2 or 3 controls, normally input controls, it's recommended that you put it inside a scroll view. So let the constraint layout be as it is. Let's go to the containers and look for something called scroll view, and let's drag and drop it inside the constraint layout. Once you do that, scroll view can have only one child element. That will be a linear layout for sure. This is what I want. I'll be putting my controls here, but please note the scroll view is inside a constraint layout. So let's first apply constraints. And now let's start dragging and dropping controls onto the linear layout of our program. In this linear layout, we'll be putting 4 text boxes by which the user will give us the input of register number, name, course, and email. Now, in order to take that, I'm going to use a text input layout. When you drag and drop it for the first time, it will sync with Gradle, and once it is done, your control is ready now. And let's put 4 of those controls. Note that all the 4 controls are inside this linear layout, which is inside a scroll view, which is inside a constraint layout. So anyway, let's choose all the 4 text input layouts, edit text, and remove the hint which automatically comes as the word itself called hint. So let me just choose all the input text and remove the hint which automatically comes there. And let's do it for individual controls. Before that, let me put a button so that all the controls together we can apply a margin. Should be inside the linear layout, and you've got the button. So let's choose all the 5 controls which are here and apply margin for all of them. And once it is done, let's go to individual control and name them properly. So the first control is edit text here. I will name it as ET register number. The hint I'll be giving it here in the text input layout. I'll give the hint as enter register number. So the first thing is done. Second thing is student name. So I'll give the hint as enter student name. And the ID of that control, I'll give it as ET name. The next control will be taking the course detail from the user. So I'll give the hint as enter course. And the ID of the text input would be ET course. That is done. The last one is for the email. So let's give the hint as enter email address. And I'll change the ID of that control to ET email. So I have got 4 of these text boxes. The last one is a button. Let's put the name for that also. I'll put it as BTN insert. And in the text, I'll just say add student data. I leave the designing part up to you. If you want to give some color and font and size and all, you can do it here. I'm leaving it as it is. Now let's go to the code part. The code part here is pretty simple. First thing what I need to do is to make sure that I map all the controls which are there in the design to the code. Let's do that quickly. There are 4 text boxes on the design. Let's map them all. I'll say text input edit text. I'll be naming them as register number txt, name txt, course txt, email txt. These are the text boxes which are there, corresponding data. And the last one is a button. You can either write a button using the first method, or the second method, or the third method. Depends on you. I'll use the first method because I have only one button there in the screen. So I'll just say button. I'll say insert BTN. Now let's map them all in the onCreate. Register number is equal to find view by ID r.id.et register number. Like this, let's do the remaining also. Now that all the controls on the design are mapped, let's go to the logic part. The logic is if you click on this button, I would like you to get all the four data which is there in the design and bring it as Java variables in this code. So when should I do that? Only when you click on the button. So I'll write with the insert btn dot set on click listener new on click listener. In that anonymous class, we will write here what should happen if you clicked on the button. I'm going to create one integer and three strings. First integer is register number, which is equal to, I'll call the register number txt, the text box, and then say get text dot toString. I know it's not possible to convert, so let's just wrap it using integer dot parsent. Second one is name, which I can get from name txt dot get text dot toString. Similarly, let's create the remaining also. String course is equal to course txt dot get text dot toString. The last one is email. String email is equal to email txt dot get text dot toString. Now I have got all the four records. Please note, I would like to insert a new row, or in other words, a new record of the student. According to the POJO, if you remember the formula which I told you to remember, is if you want to create one row in a table, you need to create one instance of that class. So let's create an instance of that class. Student space s is equal to new student. Please note, what I have done here is to create a new object of that student, and the student object is right now blank. It does not have any details. You can instantiate it in two ways. Number one, you can even pass all the four values here itself as constructor. If you remember, I created two constructor, one with no parameters, the other one with all the four parameters which we have chosen. So if I pass all these four values which I got from the user, I can write it in one line and finish it off. That is also possible. The second way would be to call that s and then say set register number to whatever you have got, set name to whatever you have got. Like that we can do it. I'll show you both the ways, but I'll comment one way out. So this is the simplest way of writing. I can just pass, first one is register number, second one is the name, and the third one is course, and the fourth one is email. So if I pass all these four, in this one line itself, I have created a student object with those four data which you require to create a student object. Now an instance of a class is created. Now what is the other way of doing this? The same code, if you ask me. In that case, it will be lengthier, but it'll make sense when you have lots of data to be added. So I'm going to say student space s is equal to new student. I'll leave it blank, no parameters passed, but I'll call the object and keep setting it one by one to whatever value you have got. Name s dot set course as whatever you have got as course, s dot set email to whatever you have got as email. These 5 lines of code what you see is equal to this one line of code what you see. So when you have less number of records, you can use this mechanism, the first way what I've highlighted. But if you have lots of records, let's say 10-15 records, if you write like this, it might look a little bit awkward, but this would make it much clearer. So it's better to choose based on the situation. In this one, I don't require this 5 lines of code. If you could understand the first line, it'll be great. I'll leave it as commented, but I'll be using the first line just to understand that both are same. So this one line is enough, but this is just for your understanding. Now all I've done in this line of code is that I've created an instance of the class. Now in order to insert these records what you have inserted in the design into the database, what should I do? I need to open that data access object because everything is written there. So let's create an object of student DAO. Let me just name it as DAO is equal to new student data access object, and it is compulsory for you to pass one thing, that is the context. Since I'm calling it from the main activity, I just need to pass this. But please note, I am inside an anonymous class. So if I pass this, it means to this interface. I want insert activity. So I'm just going to call insert activity dot this. Done. So now the data access object knows who calls this particular data access. And then let's first start with opening the connection. Let's open the connection. And then I'm going to write a simple if condition. If condition is if I'm going to insert using the data access object dot insert. please note this insert student detail which we created takes one parameter as student itself. I can show you here. It expects you to pass a not null student object as S, and then it returns Boolean, if you remember. So I need not even write any condition. I can just pass it here as that student object. Done. So if you see this simple if condition, what it is doing is it is calling the data access object and calling this method called insert student details, in which I've passed the object of this student class. So all details of this student is right now register number, name, course, email is there inside S. I'm passing that here, and this entire block, what I'm highlighted right now, should return me true or false. If it is true, I need not write equal to true because it's understandable. So I say if this is true, something will happen. Else, there'll be an exception. We'll go and check it. I'll not write else condition. I'll just write the toast to find out whether insert works successfully or not. So in the text, I'm just saying data inserted successfully. And once you are done with the if condition, please don't forget to call the data access object and say close connection. Our insert code is done. But now please note, if I run this program, main activity only will come up again, because insert is a second activity, main is still the launcher activity. I want the main to be launcher activity just to test whether this program works or not. You can make this as the launcher activity and try. So let me run the program. Now that the program is running, before we see the output of the program, please remember I changed the launcher activity of my app to insert activity. That's why insert is running first. Now I don't want this, just for testing purposes I've put it here. Once the program is done, I'll put the launcher back to main activity, because I want to see the full list of people who have been students who are there in the database in my main activity. Then I should come to the insert. But since we are testing it, I'm in the insert activity now. Now let's just put some random data and check. And the advantage of using scroll view is this: you can scroll within the small place which you get even after the keyboard is there. If the scroll view is not there, you're supposed to remove the keyboard to see all these data. But since the scroll view is there, you can obviously scroll through wherever the screen size is available. So now I'll just put the email address. And let's click on add student data. When I click on add student data, you know what I'm expecting is that to collect all these details and then add it to the database. If I get a toast, which means it is added, because my toast will only return if the method insert returns true. Data inserted successfully. Now, I know that it is not possible to check whether the data is inserted or not without running the main activity where the retrieval is done. The retrieval is a little bit more sophisticated, so it will take a little bit more time. So before that, let's also understand how to check whether it is there without even retrieving it. How do I go and find out where my database is located, whether it is created properly, whether this data what I inserted is there or not. All these things we can do without all those retrieval code which we write by downloading the database file from my data folder. In the previous video, I've shown that. I'm going to go to that device file explorer, find my app's private data folder. In that one, databases. I'm going to download the database onto my desktop, and then I'm going to use a software called SQLite browser to open the database and see what data is available currently. Let's do that now. I'm going to the device file explorer. And as we did in the last video, I'm going to the data folder, and inside that again one more data folder. I need to find a package name called com.thomas.sqlite demo. So let me go and find that com.thomas.sqlite demo here. I have the folder. In that one there is cache, code cache. Yesterday we had files as a folder. Here I have databases as a folder. Let me open that and see. Here you see the file name called studentdb is located, which is nothing but my table name. If you remember, I had given that as my table name here, studentdb. The same thing has been created as a file. Let me right click and save as. Let me save it onto the desktop of my system and click on OK. So now it's downloading that, and it has been downloaded onto my desktop. Now let me open an SQLite browser, or you can even use a website called SQLite Online to open that. Let me open the online tool, which will be easier for all of us to access. This is SQLite Online. In this website, you can just go to File and say OpenDB. and you can choose the database which you just downloaded from your phone or your emulator. I downloaded it from my emulator. I'm going to click on this and say open. So once it is done, you can see what are the tables which is inside that database. If you remember, this is the name of my table which I had given. Let me double click on it, and here select star from TBL student details returns. This is the data, and this is the data which I just inserted using my insert activity, which means my insert is working properly. Now the next step in our program would be to retrieve that data and display it in the main activity. Now please note, I'm going to retrieve all the records from the table and display it on a list view in my main activity. If you remember, we had worked with two list views prior to this, not recycler view, just a list view. One is simple list item 1 and the other one is two-line list item. So we have created two different items, but those were android.r.layout, which means they are inbuilt in the Android operating system. But now, since I have 4 records to be displayed for one student, I need to make sure that the item what I'm displaying is designed by me, not by the system, because system can give maximum of 2 lines. I would like 3 lines in which I want the student name, course and email address. On the right hand side, I want the register number to be printed. This is my design. You can also design however you want, but that is meaning that you have to create your own template, in other words your own model of that one item, how it should look like. Then we can come back to the main activity. So now first thing I'm going to do is create an item model which would be one item, how it would look like in the list view. Let's do that now. So I'm going to right click on the layout folder here and create a new layout resource file, and let me name it as item_model. So you know that this is just the model of an item, that's it. And in the root element, I'm going to convert that into linear layout and then click on OK. So now I have just a design which has linear layout vertical in its parent element. Now I'm going to convert this vertical because I want 2 horizontal linear layouts. One will have 3 labels, the other one will have only 1 label. So I want that. I'm going to convert this linear layout which is vertical to linear layout horizontal. Please make sure that the word horizontal not only appears here, it also appears here in the orientation, because if you don't mention, by default it assumes the locations, your phone's orientation. So let me just specifically say it's horizontal. So now your linear layout is ready. Inside this linear layout, I want you to put one more linear layout which is vertical. Let's do that now. Now inside this vertical linear layout, I'm going to put one for name, one for course, and the other one for email address. Please note all these 3 text views are inside this linear layout, which is again inside horizontal linear layout. Now once I've chosen all these 3 things, also let's make sure that the width is wrap content, not match parent. So my 3 text views are ready. Now the next thing I'm going to do is make sure that this linear layout has one more linear layout on the other side where I just print the registration number. So let me put one more linear layout vertical inside this horizontal. Please note it should be something like this. So if I close it, it's 1 horizontal linear layout, 2 vertical linear layouts inside. The first linear layout has 3 text views, and the next linear layout should also have 1 text view, which will hold the registration number. That's it. Now here also I am going to say with this wrap content. You see, as the design, there's a small flaw in the design that it is taking up the entire screen first of all, and also I can't see the second linear layout. Let's fix all these things by a simple thing. First one is choose the big linear layout, the parent linear layout, and then say height is wrap content, because I'm doing the design only for one item. So I'll just say wrap content, first thing. The second thing is let's give weightage for these 2 linear layouts. Choose the first linear layout and say the layout weight is 1. Now the next thing is second linear layout. Let me just give the weight as, let's say 4, so that it is 1:4. The linear layout weight will go towards the corner. You can see something like this. This is what we want. And the text view is on the top. I want it in the middle so that all these 3 text views will have this text view as the middle element. So let me just choose this linear layout and give a gravity of center. And that is done. Now the design part, I leave it up to you. I'm going to do a particular design. You can choose however you want to design these things, but also name them appropriately. So let's choose the first text view. I'm going to name it as TV name. That text view will hold the name of my students. Whatever you type here in the text will be replaced with the code, because for every student which is there, this will keep changing. While you do the template, just to see how your output would look like, you can give it names to just check whether it is how it will be displayed in the output. So I'll just say John Doe, and the second one is TV course, which will display the course of the student. So I'll just put MCA, and the last one is TV email, which will display the email address of the user. So I'll just say johndoe@gmail.com. So something like this. So the website would look like this. And the last one is the registration number. So I'll just put TV register number. And in this register number, I'll just put some text so that we know how our register numbers look like. Done. The controls are touching the borders of the screen. So let's choose the parent linear layout and then apply a margin to it, so that they don't touch the corners, but then they display neatly here. Now you can leave it as it is because if you just wanted to see the output, but I also recommend that you display or you can highlight important things like name can be bold. That design part I leave it up to you. I'll do a small design and let's continue with this. Now once you have decided the item model, our work here is done. There is no coding involved with this particular program at all. The only thing I need you to remember here are the IDs which we have applied for each and every control which is available. Now with this template, let's go to the main activity. In the main activity, all I'm going to do is put one list view control here. So let's do that. I'm going to delete this text view which is already there and convert this constraint layout to a linear layout. And let's also convert this linear layout to vertical. And inside this linear layout, I want you to put a list view. Please note, not a recycler view, just a list view, which will be available in legacy. Let's drag and drop a list view inside the linear layout, which is vertical. And once you do so, you should get the design something like this to indicate that there's a list view ready. So let's click on the list view, go to its ID, and then let's name it as LV students. Now the only thing I want to put in this list view is just the name, and the design is only this much. Remaining everything will be manipulating via code. So let's do the code part for this. In the main activity, to retrieve all the details which is available in the database and display it in the list view, I'll be declaring a few things globally which we'll be needing throughout the program. So let's start with the first one, is the list view itself. I need the list view to be mapped in the code. So I'll be creating a list view. So I'll just name it as list view students. And the second one would be, I need you to access the data. So I require an object of student DAO. Let me name it as DAO. When you retrieve the data as retrieve all student details, if you see that the return type is cursor, which means I will be requiring a cursor in my program. Let me also create that globally. And in order to get the data from the cursor and map it to the list view, I need an adapter. So for that, also I'll create an object called simple cursor adapter. I'll name it as cursor adapter. Done. These are the four important things which we'll be using in this program. Now, out of this, the first two things I'll be instantiating as soon as your onCreate is called. So inside the onCreate, I'm going to write list view students is equal to find view by ID r.id.list view of students. That's the only control I have. The second one is the DAO object. So I'll say DAO is equal to new student DAO, and it expects a parameter as context to be passed. I'll just pass this, which means this class, which is nothing but main activity. The context is also passed. You can write the code to fill the data in the list view in onCreate also, but the problem is if you write it in onCreate, only if you destroy your activity and reopen it once again, you'll be able to see the newly updated data. So in order to avoid that and to call it whenever I want, I'll be creating a separate method just to load the data into the list view. Let's write a separate method for that. So I'm going to create my own method called public void load data. I'll just create a simple method, something like this. Now inside this is the core logic of our program we'll be writing, and we'll call this onCreate or onStart wherever you want it. So first thing, what do I require in load data? The first thing I need is you to retrieve all the data from the database and put it in the cursor. So since I already have the cursor object, let me just call the cursor object and then say, how do I get the cursor? I need to call the data access object which we have created, and then let's say open connection. Please note, open connection returns an object or the instance of that DAO which is open the helper in your database. So with that I can call retrieve student details. Please note that method returns a cursor with all the student details which is available in your table. So with that our cursor is also ready. Now, once the cursor is ready, the next thing I need to do is I need you to map this data, what is available in the cursor, to my list view. You need to map each and every record. For example, if you retrieve student register number, I wanted to map every student register number to the label which I put as TV register number. This mapping needs to be done. Now, if you see, the map happens between two things, from and to. From where? From a particular string array in which I have names of what columns I'm going to map, and the next one is int array, the IDs of those controls, TV, register number, etc. So let me just put two different arrays, from and to. From which column to which control. Let's do that. I'm going to create a string array called as from. From where? So let me create a new string array, and within brackets I'm going to give the values. I need to pass the column names here. What are the column names? You remember that I created it in DAO. I'll just call that DAO and then say ST underscore. You can see that it is available because I made it as public static final, if you remember. So I'll just call that here. I'll say I want a register number. Second one, DAO dot ST name. Third one is DAO.st course. The last one is DAO.st email address. This is the from. From these column names, where do you want me to link each of these columns? So let me create an int array. The reason why I'm creating an int array called to is from these columns, where are you mapping to? Okay, please note, I need to call the controls which corresponds to those column names. How do I know the control? How do I call the controls? With their ID, which is nothing but an integer because it's a resource ID. So I'm going to say new int array, and within brackets, please note, you need to give the ID where I should map the register number. If you remember, my ID is r.id.tv register number. So the column register number from will be mapped to the TV register number, like that. Let's continue. The next one is name. So I'll just call r.id.tv name. Next one, course, r.id.tv course. The last one is r.id.tv email. So your from and to is ready. Then the remaining part is very simple. Just create an object of that cursor adapter. So let's create an object of cursor adapter is equal to new simple cursor adapter. Please note, I need to pass parameters to this. So let me just explain what those parameters are. Number one, please note the second one, not the striked out one. First one is context. It's easy. You can just pass this this activity as the context. Second one, which layout would you like me to take as the model for this item? You already have created in a layout folder called item underscore model. I'll pass that. Third thing, I need to pass the cursor object, which I already have. Fourth one, string array from which columns. Last one is to which controls. That's it. And the last one is flags. If you have any, I don't have flags, I'll just put 0. Let's start filling those data. First one, context, I'll just pass. Context is this class. Second one, layout. I know the layout, r.layout. We created something called item underscore model. So let's choose that as the layout to be inflated. Next one, cursor. I already have the cursor object which has the full data of the student details. And the next one, from array. I also have that. Second one, to array. I also have this integer array of 2. Flags, since I don't have anything, I'll just put 0. With that, our code is done. So the cursor adapter takes some few parameters. I've put all those parameters now. The cursor is ready, cursor adapter is ready. The only thing missing now is to call the list view and set the adapter as this cursor adapter. So let me call the list view of students and then say set adapter to the simple cursor adapter. That's all. With that, the load data part is ready. Now, please note, I have not called it anywhere. So let's call it in a particular position. I don't recommend calling it in on create because it will be called only once per life cycle of your activity. So better to call it in on start. So I'm going to create another method called on start, which is the life cycle method of your activity. And in that one, I'm going to call load data. Every time the activity starts, it will be called, irrespective of whether it is the first time or if you have gone to some call and come back here, it will give you load data as soon as you have called on start. Let's run the program and check the output. When I ran the program, insert activity came first. The reason is because if you remember in the last program, I made this as the launcher activity. So insert activity is ready. As long as that page is there, let me insert one more record so that when we retrieve, at least 2 records are available. Let me add one more record. And the data is inserted successfully. Now I'm going to change the intent filter from insert activity to main activity once again. And then let me run the program again. Here is the output of this program with respect to the main activity where the retrieval has happened. In the last video, I had inserted one record called Akhil, and this video I inserted this. Both the records are displayed and you have a proper list view ready. And as long as there are records in your table, that much records will be retrieved and kept here. That's all we have written in main activity.java. In the last 2 videos, we had retrieved the data and inserted the data into SQLite database. We will continue with the same program and let's do updating data in the following videos. Now, please note updating can indicate 2 things. One is editing this existing data which is already there and just modifying some details if you want. And the second part is deleting. If you want to delete a particular record and then insert it again or something like that. In order to do that, we need to make sure that there are links given appropriately in the page. But if you note, I have one activity here. I don't even have a link to go to the insert activity. So let's focus on getting all these functionalities in the main activity. Then we'll go to the code part. So first I'm going to change the look and feel of this and then change a little bit of the design and then we'll go to the code. So the first thing I want is a link to go to the insert activity. Please note, I can either give it as an options menu here or also as a floating action button at the bottom corner of your page. So let me do a floating action button because that is different. We have already done options menu. And the second thing is when I long press on a particular student or a particular record, I would like 2 menus to appear here with respect to edit and delete, and that is a contextual action mode or action menu. So I'll bring that up. Now in order to bring that up, I need to manipulate this toolbar. If you remember in the drawer demo, I had done that. If I don't manipulate this toolbar, this is part of a theme. So let me open the themes or styles.xml in our project. This is the by default theme of your app. You can see dark action bar is part of the project. So that's why when I run the project, even though in the design I have only this much, in the running part I get the toolbar as well as the list view. I don't want this this activity, the main activity, to have a toolbar, but I want insert and edit or any other activity I'm having in this project should have this toolbar, but I don't want the main activity to have this. So how do I do that? First, I want to remove this toolbar from my by default theme. So let's do that here. First thing what I'm going to do is, see, there is already a theme here. I'm just going to copy that and paste it because I don't want to mess with the remaining apps. So let's create our own theme here. So I'm going to name it as my theme, or you can even put it as main activity theme, something like that. And here I'm going to remove this word dark action bar and then say no action bar. Now I have 2 types of themes in my project. One is with action bar, one is without action bar. So how do I apply this only to main activity? Let's go to the manifest. In the manifest, there are 2 activities, insert and main activity. But if you see, the application tag, which holds everything, has a theme applied automatically. That is the app theme. App theme already has an action bar, but I want that app theme to be applied to insert activity or edit activity which I'm about to create, but I don't want that to be applied to main activity. In main activity, I would like to have the theme which I just created. So let me look for @style/my theme. Now if you run the project, you will see that the toolbar is not there in the main activity. After running this program, you can see that the main activity, which we just applied the theme as my theme, in which I said no action bar, there is no action bar, directly the list view starts. So now what we require is there. Now let's go to the design and apply a toolbar on our own, floating action button on our own. Let's do the design now in this main activity. This is our main activity. Now in this main activity, I would like to put one toolbar as well as a floating action button. All these things can be put separately also, but there is a layout which can help us do all these things in one shot. Please go to containers and look for a control called as app bar layout. Okay, so let's just drag this and put it into our project. What you see here is the configuring app bar dialog. In this one, you can see that what comes here is nothing but a coordinator layout, which I've mentioned about layouts in Android PPT, which we did in class. So this is a coordinator layout, which means when you open for the first time, it'll be like this. When you scroll, it'll collapse and it'll come like this. So you have a collapsing toolbar. You can, if you want whatever you want, you can add it. First one is collapsing toolbar. You can see a preview of how it would look like, which means when you scroll, that would go off. That's the idea. And the second thing is image background. If you want an image here, you would have seen this InShots and hikes, news, and all those things. You will have the picture and you will have a text here. This is the image background with coordinator layout. So let's skip that. I just want a floating action button, and toolbar will automatically come. So I'll just take that. And the last one is tabs. If you add tabs, it will be added here like this. 1, 2, 3, how many tabs you want, and then you can go and programmatically manipulate it. So I don't want all these things. I just want a floating action button and a toolbar. Toolbar is by default given, but whether it is collapsing or not is my question. I don't have that much data here. Just normal toolbar is fine. So I'm not going to choose collapsing toolbar. If you see, the floating action button has a weird color and an icon there. I don't want this. We can change it after we dragged and dropped it. So just choose this and then click on OK. Once you have clicked on OK, you can see that the entire component tree has changed drastically, because initially I had just had a linear layout and a list view for students, but everything is now organized or kept in such a fashion that you get this output something like this. So now I don't want this also. I just want a toolbar. Let's fix that. So first thing I want you to do is to make sure that this is not a collapsing toolbar layout. So please drag this toolbar onto the app bar itself and click on this toolbar layout and delete it. That's it. So now click on the app bar and go to its height. You see there is a fixed height. Let's fix that by changing it to wrap content. You see that the floating action button has a different color and not so contrast icon. So let's fix that. First, I'll go to the background tint and I'll change it into color primary, so that theme matches. And if you see that the icon also is not proper, so let's fix that part. Let's go to see where the icon is coming from. It's coming from source. So let me click on that. And they have chosen this as the icon. Let's not choose it. Let's create our own. So I'm going to click on add and say vector asset. Let's choose the clip art and let's look for add. And you see there is a symbol here. I'm going to choose that and let's click on OK. I'll name it as IC_add, and then please note the color should be white so that it will be transparent in the output. So here it is done. Now let's click on finish and choose that and then click on add. If you see that the icon is too small and doesn't make a big difference for us, so let's go back to a property called as maximum image size. It's right now in 24 dp. You can just change it into something like 50 dp. Now you see that there is a add button there with which looks like a floating action button. So that's it. I need not bother about how it is oriented and all those things, because the layout would take care of that. So our part here is done. Let's name them appropriately. The first one is the toolbar. The ID, let it be toolbar itself because I have only one. The next one is the floating action button. Let's give an ID called FAB, floating action button, add. So our design part is done. If you notice that there'll be a toolbar here and we can programmatically manipulate it. We have a floating action button, which again we can programmatically manipulate. So with these things, let's go to the code part. In the code part, the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that the floating action button works, so that I can keep that part away and then we can go to the editing part. So first, let me create an object of floating action button. Let me name it as FAB add. And let's instantiate it in the onCreate is equal to find view by ID r.id.fab add. And then when you click on it, what do you want me to do? So I'll just choose fab add dot set on click listener. I'll just create a new instance of the view listener and then say, if you click on that, what do I want you to do? Simple. I just want you to go to insert activity. I don't want to take any data and just go to the next activity. So let's create an intent. So I'll create an intent space I is equal to new intent from main activity dot this to insert activity dot class, and then say start activity with that intent. Our work here is done. Let's check. When I ran the program, you can see that the toolbar has come, but there is app name is missing here because we have not programmatically manipulated it yet. And also one more record is missing. That's because your layout is not filled it because it's a nested scroll view. So I'll fix that shortly, but you see there's a floating action button ready. Let me just click on it and see if it works. Yes, it works. I came back to insert activity. So let's go back and fix this issue and run it once again. In order to fix that issue, please go to the design. In the design part, just choose this nested scroll view, which has the linear layout, which has your list view, and then find a property called fill viewport and then make it true. That's all. It will take up the entire screen. Now, if you run the project, it will be a little bit different. Now, when I run the project, after setting that property, you can see all the records which are available, not just the first record, and still the toolbar is not manipulated, but our floating action button is ready. Now, let's go and manipulate our toolbar. Let's create an object of that toolbar. Please note, when you choose toolbar, make sure that you choose the one which says app combat. Anymore, wherever you find a control which you are importing, make sure that you choose the app combat version which starts with Android X. So let's choose toolbar. Let me just name it as toolbar. And inside this, after that fab is done, let's create an object of toolbar is equal to find view by ID r.id.toolbar. Done. Now I can just call the toolbar and set whatever I want. So I'm just going to say set title. I'm going to set the title as the app's name. You know where the app's name is located. I can just call r.string.app_name. Done. Now if you run, it'll go back to the original state. Now that we have set the title, please note this title will come in black color because you have not set a theme. If the theme is dark, the text will come in white. If the theme is light, the text will come in dark. That's the normal idea. But when it comes to our project, we have not mentioned a particular theme here. So by default, it will be light. If it is light, the app bar will have this word SQLite demo in black color. Let me just run this project just to see how it looks like at this point of time. I've run the project without changing the theme of the app bar. You see that the theme is by default light, so the text came in dark mode. This is not recommended. Let's keep a dark theme for the toolbar so that this text comes in white. So let's do that now. Choose your toolbar and go find a property called theme. In that one, search for a theme which says dark action bar. Please note that it should also have the word theme overlay. So I'm going to just search for theme overlay and find for something which says dark.action bar. So I'll just choose OK. That's it. Let's run the project once again. Now when you run the project, you see that it looks like somewhat how we ran in the beginning with the theme. Now this is we have manipulated the toolbar and we have manipulated the floating action button. So now the next step would be to bring a contextual action menu here when you long press on a particular student record here. So when I long press here, I would like an action mode to come with edit and delete menus. So the first thing we'll be creating are menus. For that, let's go to the resource folder, right click on the resource folder and create a new Android resource directory. Type is menu and then click on OK. Inside the menu folder, right click, new menu resource file. Let's name it as action_menu. This is the action menu which will be triggered only when you long press on a particular item. Let me click on OK and the menu template is ready. Let's drag and drop only two menu items here. One is for editing, one is for deleting. That's it. So I'm going to drag and drop one menu item. Let's put some properties. The first thing is the ID. I'm going to keep the ID as IT edit. And the next one, the title should be the word edit. And icon, please note, I don't want words to come. I want icons only to come. So let me just choose an icon. I don't have right now anything. So let's create a new one. I'll just create a new vector asset and let's search for which has relevance to editing. I'm just going to look for something called edit. So you can see that this icon is enough. So I'll just choose this and then click on OK and let the color be white itself so that it will be transparent and it will come in any dark toolbar color. So let me just click on IC_edit as the word and then click on next, finish. So edit will have this. Let's click on OK. And the next one is show as action always and click on apply so that it should come here like this. The first thing is done. Now let's go to the next item. I'll be naming this as IT delete. That item name would be delete and icon. Let's create one. I'm searching for delete. I'll choose this dustbin thing so that it means it's delete And let me just remove the words which are before. IC_delete, next and finish. Let me choose that and then click on OK. And the next property I'm going to apply is show as action always. And with this, our menu is ready. I've finished designing the menus. So these menus are not going to be always available to the user. It will be only available if you long press on a particular student's record. So let's do that now. If you remember the contacts app which we had done to explain content providers, I had done this contextual action menu by long pressing on one particular contact to get call or SMS option. I'm going to do the same thing but in a little bit different fashion. The first thing I'm going to do is to get the flow of how I want it. When you long press on a particular item in the list view, I want an action mode to start. And in the action mode's beginning, I want you to inflate the layout, the menu layout which we just created and put it on the toolbar. In the contacts app program, I wrote implements action mode dot callback. But here I'm going to do a little bit different way so that it is easier for us to maintain the code. I'm just going to the bottom of the page. Before the main activity is closed, I'm going to write private action mode. Please note there are two action modes available. One belongs to Android.view, the other one belongs to AndroidX.appcombat.view. I hope by now you know you should choose the Android X version and then say callback. That's the one which we are going to create. And let me create an object of callback is equal to new action mode dot callback. It will create a set of methods which are required or interfaces which are required for us. Callback is an interface, so when you click on enter, it will implement all its methods within this particular keyword called callback. So let me just press enter and let me go to the last and then put a semicolon so that it does not have errors there. Now if you see, there are four methods inside that interface. One is on create action mode, on prepare, on action item clicked, on destroy. It has its own life cycle, a small life cycle if you say. As soon as the object of this callback is called, I want the menu which we just created with edit and delete to come on the toolbar. So first let's go to on create action mode, which means as soon as it is called, what you want me to do. First thing, let's remove that false and make it as true because I'm going to return something. And the second thing is that I'm going to call this mode which is available here and then say get menu inflator dot inflate. Inflate what menu, which I just created. So which is there in r.menu.action_menu. That's what we just created. Second thing is in what kind of a menu, which is already passed here. So I'll just pass that and her work here is done. The second thing is that when this action mode has started, please note whatever is there already in the toolbar will go off. What is right now there in the toolbar is the title of your project that will be going off, which will look a little bit odd. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say mode.set title. I'll give the title as r.string.app_name, which means my app name will still be there. And second thing, let's make it a little bit more different so that there's a subtitle there. So set subtitle, I'll just say choose your action. Now please note when the menu runs, you will get two icons, edit and delete. On this side you'll have the app's name, below that you'll have the small word called choose your action. Done. So our on create is ready. Now when you click on either edit or delete, what should happen? That will be written here in on action item click. Let's write that here. So inside this, if you see, there's by default return false, will be return true. And inside that, let's create a switch case. In the switch case, I am going to get which item did you click on. So how I will know that is by its item ID. So I'll just say get item ID. And inside this, I'm going to write case r.id.it. You see, there are two items which I had put in the menu. One is edit. What do you want me to do? The second thing is case r.id.it delete. What would you like me to do? Here all these things are ready. I'll be writing the actions shortly, but before that, this has never been called yet. So when should I call this? You should call this action mode when you have long press on a particular item in the list view. So let's go to the list view code which is available on the top. As soon as you create an object of the list view, I'm also going to ask the list view to listen for a long click. So I'm just going to say list view students dot set on item long click listener. And I'm going to create an object here and then press enter. So if you see, an on item long click has been created, and in that one you will get the position as well as the ID of when I say ID, please note this is coming from a cursor adapter. In cursor adapter, whichever you have put as primary key becomes the ID. Position doesn't matter for your cursor adapter because it is all database related and I have ID specifically. In order to edit or delete, I want that ID only. So let's keep that as it is. I'll go and change this to return true. On item long click, I would like you to start the action mode of the project. So let me create it globally and then instantiate it locally. I'll create action mode. Please note action mode should belong to app compat. So I'll just keep it as action mode. Now inside this on item long click, what I want you to do, action mode is equal to start support action mode. Please note it returns an action mode. So I'm just going to call start support action mode. And what is the callback object? I already have the callback object. I'll just call it. Done. Now, is that all I require? No. You also need, when you long press on a particular item, you also need which student or which register number did you just long press on. That is passed to you here in ID. So let's take that also globally. I'm going to create a static int register number. And please note the reason why I put static is because when I reinstantiate or when I recreate this program, I don't want the register number which I just chose to be deleted. Okay, so I want that number to be there throughout my different instantiations which I do. Now I am going to put the register number from the ID which you just got. You can even use it as long. Since I've used it as int, I'll just typecast it. So as soon as you long press, I am going to say the register number what you have created globally is equal to the ID which is passed by the system to you. And since they are not compatible, let's cast it into an int and it is done. Now, before I run the program, please understand the flow. Number one, when you long press on a particular item, this method will be triggered. In that one, you will already set the register number, and in the action mode part, you will say start action mode. So action mode will be inflated, which means the menu will come on the top. And once the menu is available, you can click on it, edit or delete. It is your wish. So what if I clicked on edit or delete? How will I know which one or what number did you click on? Let me just put a toast in both the places so that you'll know both are working. So I'll just call toast and then say you want to edit. I'll concatenate that with the register number which I've kept globally. By the time you click on this, the register number will be set anyway. So I'll just copy that. I'll paste it below. I'll just say you want to delete this register number. I'll be removing this toast after this program. But just for understanding, we have kept two toast messages. Let's run the program and check the output. Now, please note when I run this project and when I try to bring the action mode, it will not overlay on top of my toolbar, rather it will create its own toolbar once again. So let me just show you what will be the problem, then we'll see how to fix it. So first thing, I'm just going to long press on a particular item. When I long press on a particular item, I have set start support action mode. So when the start support action mode begins, you should get a menu inflator to give me the action menu. So let's try this. Here it is coming, but it doesn't have space to display the edit and delete menu, and it is kind of overlapping, which is kind of not what we were looking for. So what we will do right now is we will change some settings and we'll come back here. So let's go to the theme of our main activity. I'm in the theme part of our project right now. This particular theme is applied to our main activity. So let's add two more properties here. Number one is that I want this action mode, what you just brought, overlaid on top of the current toolbar. So first property I'm going to add is item name is equal to, let's look for window action mode overlay. Look for the word window action mode overlay, which means already which is there on the toolbar. Don't want you to add a new one, I just want you to overwrite it. So I'll just say true. This is the property. Next one is item. Let's also say the background color of your action mode. So I'll just look for action mode background. If you remember the output, what I showed, it was white in color, which means it is by default light themed, but I don't want that. I want the color to be the same color as what you have applied for the toolbar. So I'll just say add color/color primary. Done. Now let's run the project and check the output. After running the project, I'm just going to long click on a particular item. Let's see what happens. You see that the title has been set. There's a subtitle also. There are two buttons, edit and delete. Let me click on one of those buttons. You can see that you want to edit this particular number 171730, and second one is you want to delete this particular number. So I've got the actions registered. So if you click on this, I just need to do the corresponding actions which you need to update your record.